You just hired a rock star salesperson. I mean, they tripled revenue at their last company.
Right, the flawless resume.
Exactly. Their resume is flawless. They absolutely crushed the interview, and your leadership team was practically popping champagne when they signed the offer letter.
Oh, I've seen that exact scenario so many times.
Right. But then, 6 months later, they are dead last on your leaderboard. And you're just sitting there wondering, why? Because the very skills and, the instincts that made them a superstar at their last job are practically guaranteeing they fail here.
It's really the ultimate paradox in modern revenue organizations.
Yeah.
We look at past performance as this absolute, unassailable predictor of future results, but a commercial environment is an ecosystem,
Yes, exactly.
You take an apex predator out of the jungle and drop them in the middle of the ocean. They don't adapt, they drown.
They just drown.
Yeah.
And if you are listening to this right now, whether you're a VP of sales, a CRO, or a hiring manager staring down a massive revenue gap, you have likely lived this exact scenario.
Oh, 100%.
It's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
You hire these experienced professionals with stellar track records, yet your pipeline remains completely unpredictable. Deals are slipping, and your forecasts are, well, they're little more than corporate hallucinations at that point.
And the ripple effect of that unpredictability is what truly damages a company.
Right.
This isn't just about the sales floor missing a quota. When the revenue engine stalls, your marketing teams are burning budget-generating leads that they vanish into a black hole.
Just totally wasted spend.
Exactly. Your executive team is sweating in front of the board because they can't defend the forecast. And ultimately, investor confidence in your entire growth model starts to fracture.
Which brings us to the most dangerous, insidious reflex in corporate leadership. When those targets are missed, the immediate knee-jerk assumption is always about effort.
Always.
It's so tempting for a frustrated executive to look at a stagnant pipeline and say, the team just isn't hungry enough, or, they aren't hitting the phones hard enough.
Yeah, the classic work harder mandate.
Exactly. It's a lazy assumption because it shifts all the blame away from structural failures and places it entirely on the individual's motivation.
Blaming a lack of effort is essentially organizational malpractice.
Wow, organizational malpractice. I like that.
It's true, though. It prevents you from diagnosing the actual disease because you are too busy treating a symptom that, honestly, might not even exist.
And dismantling that lazy assumption is exactly our mission for this deep dive today. We are unpacking some incredible insights gathered from Nathan Davis at The Sales Experts.
Excellent source material.
Yeah, it really is. The goal today is to map out a structural blueprint for genuine sales success. We are going to look at the hidden systemic reasons your revenue targets are being missed so you can stop treating the symptoms and start fixing the machine.
It's a vital exercise because attempting to solve a revenue problem by simply launching a new recruitment search is like trying to fix a leaky bucket by pouring more water into it.
Right, you're just making a bigger mess.
Exactly. If your structural foundation is compromised, adding more expensive headcount will only accelerate your cash burn. You have to understand the mechanics of the failure before you can figure out who is capable of succeeding.
So let's start with the hiring process itself, because the sources highlight hiring misalignment as the most pervasive cause of underperformance.
Yes.
And this goes back to our apex predator analogy.
Yes.
There is this massive trap where companies hire purely for a strong track record without analyzing the specific commercial environment that actually produced that track record.
The halo effect of a great resume is incredibly blinding.
Oh, totally.
A candidate comes in with a recognized logo on their CV, they have, President's Club awards, and the hiring manager immediately assumes that commercial capability is completely universal.
Right, like they sold well there, they'll sell well here.
Exactly. But a sales environment is dictated by deeply specific variables. Average deal size, sales cycle length, product complexity, the buyer persona, and even the maturity of the market.
Okay, let's actually break down the mechanics of why that matters. Say you have a rep who dominated in a highly transactional, high-velocity environment.
Okay.
They are used to creating immediate emotional urgency, right? Controlling the narrative on a single call and pushing for a signature before the prospect has time to overthink it.
The one-call close mentality.
Exactly. Now, you drop them into a complex enterprise software role. The physiological and psychological tools they rely on are suddenly useless.
Worse than useless, actually. Those tools become liabilities.
Wait, liabilities? How so?
Well, in an enterprise deal, you aren't selling to an individual. You are selling to a consensus.
Right, the buying committee.
Exactly. You have to navigate a CFO who cares about ROI, a CISO who cares about security compliance, and an end user who cares about UI. If a transactional rep tries to use their traditional muscle memory, applying pressure and pushing for a quick close, they don't just lose the deal.
Good heavens.
They trigger the defensive reflexes of an entire procurement department and get themselves permanently locked out of the account.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a completely different metabolic rate. The transactional rep is sprinting, fueled by the dopamine of daily wins. But the enterprise rep is running a grueling, multi-layered campaign over 12 months where success requires extreme patience and the ability to map out internal corporate politics.
And the inverse is just as disastrous.
Going the other way.
Yeah. You take a polished, relationship-driven enterprise rep who is used to having a massive support team, solutions architects, deal desk analysts, and you put them in a high-velocity, scrappy mid-market role.
Oh, they'd be paralyzed.
Completely. They will overcomplicate every single interaction. They'll try to build a massive business case for a purely operational purchase, and while they are busy mapping stakeholders, a hungrier competitor will just come in and take the order.
Which means the mandate for you, the listener, is clear. You have to ruthlessly audit your own environment.
Yeah.
You aren't just hiring for past success, you are hiring for structural compatibility. But let's assume you get that right. You understand your market, you hire the rep with the exact right physiological tools for your specific environment. The sources point out that this rep can still fail spectacularly if the role itself is structurally flawed.
Because talent cannot outperform a broken system.
Right.
And the most common place we see that system break down is at the very top of the funnel pipeline generation.
This is such a fascinating dynamic. You have these salespeople who are absolute wizards when they are navigating an active buyer's journey.
Oh, yeah.
If marketing drops a highly qualified inbound lead into their lap, or if they are expanding a warm existing account, their win rates are phenomenal.
Unstoppable.
But the moment leadership tells them to proactively prospect, to pick up the phone and create a net new opportunity out of thin air, they just paralyze.
Well, the mechanics of those two actions are fundamentally opposed.
How so?
When you're handling an inbound lead, the buyer has already diagnosed their own problem. They are 70% of the way through their journey.
Right. They already know they need something.
Exactly. The salesperson's job is essentially to guide them across the finish line and position the product correctly. But proactive prospecting, that requires interrupting someone's day to manufacture a problem they didn't even realize they had.
It requires an entirely different tolerance for rejection.
Precisely. It is highly disruptive behavior. It requires researching triggers, crafting provocative messaging, and willingly walking into hundreds of rejections just to find one opening.
Yeah.
If your team is stacked with brilliant relationship builders who inherently avoid that kind of confrontational disruption, your pipeline will naturally dry up the moment marketing struggles to produce inbound leads.
So you're basically running a reactive revenue organization.
Exactly.
And the corporate solution to this is often what I call the unicorn myth.
Ah, yes. The unicorn.
It's this wildly unrealistic job design where leadership expects a single human being to be an elite, disruptive prospector in the morning, a consultative, deeply technical closer in the afternoon, and a nurturing, empathetic account manager by the end of the day.
Which is organizational design by wishful thinking.
Right. But I have to push back here, because I hear a lot of veteran sales leaders complain about this exact topic.
Sure.
They look at the modern revenue org chart and say, are we just pampering reps today? 10 years ago, a full-cycle salesperson hunted their own meat, cooked it, and cleaned the dishes.
I hear that all the time.
Now we have micro roles for everything. Are we just overcomplicating the profession because reps are afraid to cold call? What do you say to that?
Look, I understand the nostalgia for the full-cycle gladiator, but the reality of the modern commercial landscape has changed. It isn't about pampering. It is about cognitive load and context switching.
Cognitive load.
Yes. Modern high-growth organizations rely on logical role division because it eliminates the friction of shifting gears.
The cost of context switching is huge.
It destroys efficiency. If you ask a rep to write highly personalized cold outreach sequences, then immediately jump onto a highly technical closing call for a massive deal, and then mediate a support ticket for an existing client, they are constantly resetting their brain.
Yeah, that sounds exhausting.
It is. Human nature dictates that when someone is overwhelmed with competing priorities, they will naturally default to the path of least resistance.
And the path of least resistance is almost never outbound prospecting.
Never. They will endlessly tweak their CRM or have another check-in call with an existing client who already loves them. The hard, disruptive work of building pipeline falls off a cliff.
So division is the answer.
Yes. By separating your top-of-funnel prospectors from your closers and your account managers, you force focus. You are isolating the specific behaviors that drive growth and ensuring they are executed with absolute consistency.
Okay, so logical division solves the cognitive overload, but that division introduces a brand new structural vulnerability, right?
It does.
If you separate your prospectors from your closers, you have essentially built a relay race. And where do relay races fall apart?
During the baton pass.
Exactly, during the baton pass. Which brings us straight into the execution gap. Process, leadership, and the targets reps are being measured against.
This is where we see the difference between a team of individual contributors and a highly synchronized revenue machine.
Yeah.
A divided organization requires an incredibly rigorous shared diagnostic language. Otherwise, the baton gets dropped every single time.
When you say shared diagnostic language, you're talking about the sales process itself. Not just like a list of drop-down menus in Salesforce, but the actual defined criteria of what makes an opportunity real.
Exactly. Without strict, objective entry and exit criteria for every stage of your pipeline, your prospectors and your closers will be totally misaligned.
Give me an example of that misalignment.
Well, the prospector will toss over a meeting with someone who has no budget and no authority, claiming it's a qualified lead.
Just to hit their numbers.
Right, and the closer will take the meeting, realize it's garbage, and eventually stop trusting the prospector entirely. At that point, the entire system fractures.
And it is solely the responsibility of leadership to prevent that fracture. A process on paper is meaningless without a sales leader enforcing the discipline, conducting rigorous pipeline reviews, and actually interrogating the deals.
Absolutely.
If the leadership is absent, or if the manager is just acting as an overglorified administrator who only cares about the final forecast number, the reps will simply revert to winging it.
Which is exactly why the forecast becomes a hallucination.
Yes.
You cannot accurately predict revenue if every rep on your floor has a different subjective definition of what a commit deal looks like. Strong leadership provides the alignment.
But let's talk about the targets that leadership is setting, because the source material brings up a dynamic that is mathematically fascinating: setting realistic targets.
Oh, this is a big one.
Here is a scenario we see constantly. A company inherently has a 6-month, highly complex sales cycle. They hire a new rep, and they give that rep a massive quota to hit by the end of their first full quarter.
It is entirely disconnected from reality.
It's like a bakery manager telling a baker, I need this 45-minute cake ready in 10 minutes, so just crank the oven up to 1,000 degrees.
That's a great analogy.
It doesn't speed up the chemical process of baking. It just burns the cake to a crisp and ruins the ingredients. You cannot force a 6-month procurement process into a 90-day window just because the board wants a better Q3 narrative.
And the psychological impact of that math on a salesperson is devastating.
Oh, I bet.
We talk about learned helplessness in psychology. When a rep looks at their target, looks at the verifiable length of their sales cycle, and realizes that success is not just difficult, but mathematically impossible. They don't work harder, they check out.
They realize the game is rigged.
Exactly. And when they realize the game is rigged, two things happen. They either quiet quit and start actively interviewing, or worse, they start demonstrating incredibly toxic sales behaviors.
Like what?
They start aggressively discounting your product to try and pull future deals forward into the current quarter.
Just to get something on the board.
Right, which destroys your profit margins and sets terrible precedents for renewals.
So a target isn't just a number to aim at. It's a behavioral lever. If targets are misaligned with the realistic market opportunity and the actual timeline of your sales cycle, you are actively incentivizing your team to damage your own business.
Targets must be grounded in the physics of your specific market. If your cycle is 6 months, your ramp time and your quota expectations must reflect that reality.
Okay, so we've mapped out the internal machinery, we've diagnosed the resume illusion, we've separated the roles to avoid cognitive overload, and we've aligned our processes and targets with reality.
Right.
But we have to pivot to the macro environment. What happens when the salesperson is doing everything right? They're hunting, they're following the shared diagnostic language, the math is fair, but the revenue still isn't materializing.
This is perhaps the most difficult reality for a founding team or an executive board to face.
Why is that?
Because sometimes widespread sales underperformance is a massive flashing warning light that you have a product market fit problem.
The old adage, you cannot outsell a bad product.
Or even a mediocre product in a highly constrained market. If your product is a nice-to-have vitamin and your buyers are only spending budget on mission-critical painkillers, your sales team is going to be pushing a boulder up a sheer cliff.
That makes total sense.
When customers do not inherently understand the differentiated value of the offering, the sales cycles drag out endlessly.
And then, of course, the reps get the blame for failing to overcome objections.
Exactly, but those objections aren't rooted in a lack of sales skill. They are rooted in fundamental product flaws or pricing models that simply cannot be justified by the ROI.
Wow.
You can hire a floor full of absolute superstars, but if the market has fundamentally rejected your premise, or if a competitor has entirely commoditized your feature set, the reps will fail.
That requires incredible humility from leadership to look at a missed quota and say, maybe it's not the team, maybe it's what we are asking them to sell.
It does.
But beyond the product itself, the environment also includes the internal culture and how you integrate these people. The sources touch heavily on cultural misalignment, which I think is a wildly underestimated factor in failure.
Cultural fit is often treated as an HR buzzword, but it has intense commercial implications. Think about how a deal actually gets done in your organization.
Okay, let's use that enterprise example again. You have a highly competitive, highly territorial, lone wolf rep.
Right.
In a cutthroat, entirely individualistic sales floor, they might be your top earner. But what happens if you drop that exact same personality into a highly collaborative, matrixed organization?
They create immediate destructive friction.
Immediately.
Yes. In a complex environment, a rep needs to orchestrate a team. They need the solutions architect to build the demo, they need the legal team to redline the contract, and they need the deal desk to approve the pricing.
Yeah, lots of moving parts.
If you have a lone wolf who hoards information, refuses to use the CRM because they view their contacts as proprietary, and alienates the internal support staff, those internal teams will simply stop prioritizing their deals.
Their internal reputation tanks, and suddenly their deals are stuck in legal for 3 weeks, while a more collaborative rep gets their contracts pushed through in 3 days.
The integration fails entirely, which is why comprehensive onboarding is so vital.
It's not just HR paperwork.
Not at all. We aren't just talking about handing a new hire a laptop, showing them where the coffee machine is, and giving them a product feature dump. Onboarding must be a deep immersion into the buyer ecosystem, the structural sales process we discussed, and the internal cultural mechanics of how to actually get a deal across the finish line in your specific company.
Audit the environment before you execute the employee. It is such a powerful framework.
It really is.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today, moving away from the lazy assumption of effort and diving deep into the systemic root causes of revenue failure. For the VPs of sales, the hiring managers, and the executives listening right now, I want to distill this complex system down into 3 highly actionable takeaways you can bring to your leadership team tomorrow.
Excellent. Let's hear them.
First, before you ever launch a new recruitment search or approve additional headcount, you must rigorously diagnose the root cause of your underperformance. Evaluate your structural alignment, your product market fit, and your sales process. Do not pour expensive, high-octane talent into a broken engine.
That diagnostic step is non-negotiable.
Second, design your roles logically and abandon the unicorn myth. Separate your top-of-funnel prospectors from your closers and account managers to eliminate the friction of context switching. Focus drives execution, and execution drives revenue.
You must align the daily behavior with the required outcome.
And third, verify that your sales targets are mathematically grounded in the reality of your market. Do not incentivize toxic behaviors by setting quotas that blatantly ignore the true length of your sales cycle.
Such a critical point.
If you are ready to stop guessing and start taking systemic action on these insights, you really need to dive deeper. I highly encourage you to visit thesalesexperts.com. They offer an incredible depth of resources specifically designed to help leaders define true success profiles, refine their hiring strategies, and build out the blueprints required for genuine sales success.
As you look at your pipeline this week, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Please do.
The next time you find yourself interviewing a candidate with an impeccable resume, a recognized corporate logo on their CV, and endless confidence, pause.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, Are you simply being seduced by the halo of their past success? Or do you have the rigorous objective mechanisms in place to test whether they possess the genuine commercial capability required to survive, adapt, and thrive in the specific realities of your market?
Because if you just hire the resume without auditing the environment,
Right.
you are going to be staring at another missed forecast 6 months from now, having this exact same conversation. Fix the machine, align the talent, and build a system that actually scales.